Was Dokkan's Year 9 actually better than Year 10? How's it, everybody? Celtic Link here. We're back for another Dokkan battle video. In today's video, we're talking about a bit of a hot topic right now, and that is whether or not Year 9, 2024 in Dokkan Battle was actually better than this year, 2025, Year 10. There has been a lot of discussion surrounding this topic, everything from discussions on the types of rewards and Dragonstones given, seemingly in the favor of 2025, compared to that of the units themselves that are being released and their viability and how well tuned they sort of seem, putting the advantage, according to some, in the year 2024. And then, of course, many people are talking about the content as the focal point of the discussion. The stages we have gotten, in-game stages that we use to assess and enjoy these units that we do pull for. So in this video, we're going to kind of break down a little bit about the discussion around the content, as I think that gives us the most clear picture of where we are at in terms of what is better. There's two aspects of this I want to look at. The two stages themselves, or the 2 years themselves, and the stages released within them, right? The actual stages and the style of content we received during both years. And then there's another aspect of the content that I don't think anyone's talking about that does really tell a big story on what the community views as better, and that is, what is the community watching? So let's go ahead. Let's start by hopping in and talking about the stages. So let's start with the Year 9 stages. So Year 9 introduced a multitude of different types of contents. During Anniversary, we got the memorable battles, right? Which, you know, these stages were kind of hard, interesting, gimmicky, but definitely a good challenge, and some of them made for great showcase stages for the viability of units released that year. And then, of course, we got the Supreme Magnificent Battle, right? The first of its kind, and 8 stages, culminating in a fight against Beast Gohan, with all different varied kinds of fights. The 3 major fights coming out of this that people really looked to were the Super Saiyan Trunks fight, the Beast fight, and the Gogeta fight. I feel like Gogeta the most is what people were the one that looked at, and we'll talk about why that is here in a second. Compare that to one more stage. Also, we had the second stage of the Fearsome Activation Cell Max, right? These were considered to be the hardest stages at the time. Now, we won't go into anything beyond Golden Week, which introduced the Majin Buu Saga Ultimate Red Zone, because that's where we're at currently, right? So we're going to try to keep with where 2025 is at currently to where 2024 was at. So this is where 2024 ended for us with the Majin Buu Saga Red Zone. Varied style of content, right? You had a short fight with a major AoE super. You had a long fight that could easily take you out and mess you up on the early stages, but once you got beyond that, it was clear sailing. And then, of course, you had the Kid Buu, who ramped up very quickly, could easily take out any unit not designed to take him down. So that's where 2024 was. Compare that to 2025 here, where we got a new Ultimate Red Zone Goku story, a new Ultimate Red Zone Vegeta story, both having 10 stages culminating in a fight against Super Saiyan God, Super Saiyan Goku, and Vegeta. We also got the new event, the Battle Hardened Formidable Foes, a short SBR style content, but unique in a way that each fight and each phase of each fight has its own unique gimmick, causing a lot of thought and strategy to go into each fight and the units you bring to take it down, not just plug and chug like in Super Battle Road. And then, of course, there is the Festival of Battles, the longest event to date and what some would consider the most difficult event to date, right? So Year 10, 2025, seemingly is giving us a plethora of different styles of content, all kinds of different things for various different units to take down. But then the question comes to, what do these actual stages look like when you're preparing them? Yes, is more content, but what is it relative to the units released? Well, one thing we should note, right, about year 9, when we look at like the year 9 events, right, we look at the 2 major events. We'll look at Gogeta and Beast here, right? So Gogeta culminated, it was a rather long fight for the time, culminated in a fight with 900k normals, unheard of at the time, and then, a 2.7 million super that had a massive raise on it, which essentially put it at, over 5 million. This guy was dangerous, and he had 2 AoEs that he could do after. So if you got hit with those AoEs, those were 1.2 million AoEs coming at you if you got hit with it after the super. So he was dangerous. He was very clearly designed for you to use the target skill of Gogeta or Beast Gohan to manage that part of the fight, because he was just hitting so darn hard. And then, of course, the Beast Gohan, a little bit weaker on compared to Gogeta, right? 2.4 million super. But what he did was he stunned, right? So you essentially had to make sure that he could stun and he could lock. And that's really how he messed you up, right? So you had to make sure that whoever ended up getting locked in slot 1 by him could tank his super and deal with being stunned without dying to not getting a super. So they each had their own unique ways of dealing with him and taking him down, and no two teams or strategies worked exactly the same for either one. Enter the Cell Max, right? The Cell Max at the time, right, was more of the Gamma's fight. This fight was basically designed for you to run Beast Gohan and have him target up turns 3 through 4 and launch the Gamma's standby on turn 5, and then at that point stun lock him down, right? It was a very unique fight, but what made the fight challenging was those first 3 turns where you didn't have all that ability, and he was coming out swinging at 1 million normals, and then of course the more you did damage to them, the stronger he got, although the more you could also seal, stun, attack lower, etc. But he was still powerful, right? By the end, if he was at his lowest, he was doing 2.2 mil with a greatly raise on his attack, meaning this is when he was at his most powerful. So you really wanted to have characters who could stun and seal by that point. So with that was what we were dealing with in year 9, and we almost the thing about the year 9 content is, while Beast Gohan did exist, Gogeta did exist, Broly did exist, the Gamma did exist, taking down the events with units pre that year, while not incredibly easy, was doable. What we found during this meta was that a lot of the 2023 units that weren't that viable because of the short content ended up thriving here in all of these different types of content introduced here, even in this memorable battle stage, right? So, there was that. You flash forward to Golden Week, and now we've got a brand new stage, and even then, a lot of the 9th anniversary units didn't work very well here, right? They could. Beast was actually very good for this stage, just because the protection he provided against those early phases of Kid Buu as he was ramping up. But you had a whole different set of units that could take this on and enjoy it, right? Characters like the Universe 7 Easy A's really help with this, especially the Blue Kaioken and Blue Evolution Vegeta. They worked very well against this stage, character that didn't really get to shine during the 9th anniversary. Okay, plus of course all the characters released during this time. So we had a bunch of different content, and in the content itself, the fights themselves were incredibly different and varied compared to each other. Flash forward to this year, 2025, and we basically have 10 stages of events, but only 2, right? Like if we look at the Goku story, there's really only one event people look at, right? And that's the Jiren event, right? The AGL Jiren event. He's powerful, right? 1 million normals, 2.2 million super that has a crit, which basically means guard is useless against him, right? He can hit pretty hard, and he's got, a decent chunk of HP. But you flip over. So this is the Goku story. If we flip over to the Vegeta story and we look at Jiren, while he has a different typing, it's essentially the same fight. The 5.7 million super he's doing is more or less similar to that crit that the AGL is doing. Both fights cancel dodge. Both fights have, I mean, this one has a little less HP, but the HP on Topo here kind of levels it out for the two, right? So they're more or less the same fight. It's not terrible, but they aren't that varied in terms of what you gotta do to take them down. You have to rely on characters who either don't need to dodge or bring characters that can remove the dodge canceling. And then of course you have to deal with locking and stunning from the two phases prior. They are more or less the same fight. And then, of course, you have on the Goku side, we have the Super Saiyan God Vegeta. People don't really, it is one of the harder fights. He starts at a low attack and a low super, but quickly raises it all through his through receiving an attack and for every turn. So he can quickly build up. What makes him difficult is he's got 1.2 billion HP. On the Goku side of things, right? Or on the Vegeta story, we have the Goku who has 1.5 billion HP and is doing a lot of the same thing, except he builds with each super and cancels dodge and can super twice a turn. So this is probably the harder fight between the Jirens and the Vegeta. This is probably the harder fight, and what makes this interesting to this is that a lot of the characters we've been getting aren't really attuned to this fight. The fight cancels dodge, and you know, a lot of the characters we've been getting are dodge characters. So it's really interesting choice of stages. And unfortunately, again, they're all pretty much the same. So you deal with them all in the same way. And that is using the 10th anniversary LRs, right? They're all... Without bringing them, the fights tend to last forever because of these high amounts of HP that these bosses are having. This is especially true when you get over to the Festival of Battles. The Festival of Battles is a 70-phase event. As you can see here, it's incredibly long, incredibly arduous. It could take anywhere between 2 and 4 hours to complete. And by the end, you're dealing with a 24 million super and 7 million normals. It basically means you are forced to use the year 10 fusions, right, in order to get through this. There's really no other way to do it, and that is the problem that I have seen with these fights, is that all roads lead back to the LR Tech Vegito, the year 10 LR. We want to open up the cards here, right? All roads lead back to this guy right here, right? The most powerful LR we've ever had, the Goku who transforms into Vegito, right? I don't think we've ever had an LR as influential as what this guy is. All the fights seem designed around dealing with what this guy is capable of through his counters and his active skill taunts, right? He's too strong. And the result is we have a lot of fights that are very similar in structure just to make the fight drag out for Vegito, as that's really one of the only ways to deal with him. So it is unfortunate, but that is just kind of where it's at. Compare that, right, to last year. So this was just the 10th anniversary stages. We didn't even get a new Red Zone or Magnificent Battle stage for this year's Golden Week campaign, so we can't even talk about that. So it would seem that comparatively, 2024's events are seemingly more varied and a lot more fun, right? You get a lot of same stuff going on here with the year 10. And that is what brings us to our second major point, right? We can all see the similarities between the stages in year 10, but what's even more interesting is how people are going about watching the content. I think this is an aspect of this discussion that isn't getting talked about. And so what I did was I put out a I put out some feelers and I talked to the community and I asked, right, what are the stages, right? When you log on to YouTube, what are the stages that you are looking at? Because this, I think, does matter. And it was, out of the almost 300 votes we got, it came down to Blue Goku. And that makes sense. It tracks as it being the most difficult stage for the most difficult stage for these events. And what's interesting about this is most people responded that they don't really watch these showcases anymore, right? For a lot of that, like if we just look at some of the comments here, most people are just now, right? A lot of people used to go through and watch these showcases, but a lot of people just watch the initial 100% videos, right? From people like Truth, or the 55% videos, and that's pretty much it, right? The relevant fights can pretty much you can pretty much tell right away looking at the most relevant fights here. So like on the initial showcase at this point, just because there's such a vast difference between the stages, between the initial stages and the final stages, we're forced to use the final stages for the 55% showcases, which means by doing that, you more or less get a feel for how they're going to perform in the other stages, which someone like Derpy Gamer here mentions that, you can pretty much get a quick feel for the unit there. There's not really a need to go into depth. Even people in our Discord mention, right, that, a lot of the units, I mean, just by simply looking at their kits and their 55% showcase, you can already know how they're going to do in the rest of these fights, right? Watching the videos doesn't really mean much outside of supporting the creator. And this is actually pretty supported by evidence, right? Like if I look at my videos, so I'll use my 55% showcases, for this one here, right? So if I look at my 55% showcase here for, for last year, right? We have the Ultimate Gohan. This video got around 700 views. That's not a lot, but I'm a smaller YouTuber. This video got 700 views for his 55% showcase, and it was pretty good. Compare that to this year, right? 190 views on the 55% showcase for the Part 2 LR. A Part 2 LR that was seemingly more hype than AGL Gohan, right? People seem to, even though this wasn't a Kefla that like people wanted, people were the reaction to them was much more positive than the reaction to AGL Ultimate Gohan was. And you might say, well, that was a year ago, of course it's going to have more views. Except here's the thing, like, I can't show you my analytics, but I can tell you that video pretty much topped off after the week. It didn't get any better after that. Nobody's going back and watching that 55% showcase for AGL Ultimate Gohan, right? And so this is kind of similarly where we're at right now. And this is even true for the bigger YouTubers, right? If we take a look at Truth's AGL Ultimate Gohan video, it got 40k views. Now, for someone like Truth, that's not a lot. But for a showcase video like this, that was pretty average for him until he got to the Goku Frieza meta, where the views sort of jumped up a little bit. But as terms of where we were at this time, this was his video, I believe, against Super Saiyan God, Super Saiyan Vegeta. No, sorry, Gogeta. The red zone fight we just showed you, right? 40k views. And again, you might say, well, this was a year ago. Of course it's got more, but again, I would wager that it's similar in it's pretty similar in its top off. It probably got up to 40k, it probably got up to, somewhere near the 40k and just kind of topped off after a few weeks or a month, because nobody's going back and watching this now. Very, very few people are. All right. Compare that to this year, right? We've got, a couple days already with Kalen Caulifla and only 19k views. And again, you could say that, well, it's only been a couple of days, except that 19k number is actually, from what I could see looking at his channel, that's been pretty average for the showcase. I believe this is against the Blue Goku Red Zone. So this was actually just posted yesterday. 19k views. I doubt it's getting much better. given that this has been pretty standard for the views on those types of videos for the characters, it is significantly lower than the year prior. Even more so when once we got to Tanabata and we started going into the Goku Frieza showcases after that, right? Those videos were upwards of, 57 or more, I noticed, for a lot of them as I looked through the channel. And I would wager a guess that this is probably pretty true for a lot of other YouTubers as well. Ningen, I definitely noticed a drop in his, Toonrami, and a few others, right? I've definitely noticed the drop compared to the showcases. And this lines up with what people were telling us, right? They just don't watch these showcases anymore. They watch maybe this one, and that's it. They don't really, a lot of viewers are not watching it. And well, what does that tell us? Well, what that tells us is that, people don't really want to watch Year 10 content, right? So if you had to ask the community what is better, objectively, they are showing us that they viewed last year as better. They were watching more last year than they are this year. Plain and simple. It's right here in front of us. So I just thought I would talk about that aspect of this because I think it's I don't see anybody talking about it, but I think it's a very important point. The community is speaking to us about their opinions on, which was better, simply through the act of viewing. Simply through the act of viewing, they are showing us what they viewed as better. Because if people said, well, 2025 is better, the content is better, why is nobody watching it? I'll leave it at that. So guys, that is it for the video. If you like the video, make sure you hit that like button. Subscribe to the channel if you have not already. And in the comments down below, let us know. Really, do you think last year's content was better? Or is this year's content better? And if so, what did you watch more? Did you find yourself tuning in for the Trunks showcases? Did you find yourself tuning in for the Goku Frieza showcases? Did you find yourself tuning in for the Gogeta showcases? And compare that to last year. What are you watching this year? Is it Goku? Is it Jiren? Is it battle-hardened formidable foes down here? Right? What's the difference? Let us know in the comments down below. Otherwise, guys, as always, thanks for watching, and aloha.